When we imagine modern warfare, tanks feel like an essential part of the battlefield. But there was a time, not long ago, when the idea of an armored machine rolling across the front lines felt like science fiction. The first tank battles in history were not just military events. They were experiments in fear, creativity, and desperate innovation. Born from a war that had pushed humanity to its breaking point, though it began during World War I. A conflict where millions of soldiers dug themselves into trenches stretching hundreds of miles. The Western Front was frozen in place. Barbed wire, machine guns, and mud created a landscape where it seemed impossible to break through the enemy line. Armies needed something new, something powerful enough to cross trenches, crush obstacles, and withstand bullets. Out of that need came one of the most influential inventions in military history, the tank. The world saw the first tanks in 1916 during the Battle of the Somme. The British introduced a strange steel giant they called the Mark I. It moved slowly, groaning across the battlefield at barely walking speed. But to the soldiers watching from the trenches, it was like seeing a monster rise out of the earth. German troops fired at it, but bullets simply bounced off. The tank crushed barbed wire, rolled over trenches, and created shockwaves of confusion. The first battle was chaotic and imperfect. Many tanks broke down before reaching enemy lines, and others got stuck in the deep mud. But even with these failures, the message was clear. A new age of warfare had begun. A year later, the tank proved its true power. In 1917, during the Battle of Cambrai, Britain unleashed more than 400 tanks in a coordinated attack. This time, the machines moved together in formation, supported by artillery and infantry. The results were astonishing. The tanks crossed German lines in places that had been considered impossible to capture. They shattered defensive positions and pushed forward faster than any offensive on the Western Front had managed in years. For the first time, soldiers saw what armored warfare could accomplish when strategy and technology combined. While Britain led the way, other nations quickly followed. France introduced the Renault FT, a revolutionary design with a rotating turret that allowed the gun to fire in any direction. It became the blueprint for almost every tank that followed. The French used it widely in 1918, showing that tanks could be fast, flexible, and deadly. Germany, slow to adopt the idea, produced only a handful of tanks by the end of the war. But they studied Allied designs closely, laying the groundwork for the armored divisions they would build decades later. These early battles were more than mechanical tests. They were psychological turning points. Soldiers on the ground had never seen anything like a tank. Some ran in fear as the machines approached. Others cheered, believing the metal beasts might finally break the stalemate that had claimed so many lives. Commanders realized tanks could change not just tactics, but the entire rhythm of war. Each battle revealed flaws. Engines overheated, tracks snapped, armor cracked under artillery fire. But every flaw brought improvement, and every improvement pushed warfare closer to the modern era. By the final year of World War I, tanks were no longer experimental. They had become essential tools of offense, reshaping how armies planned attacks. The tank battles at Amiens in 1918 confirmed this transformation. Hundreds of armored vehicles advanced beside infantry and aircraft in a coordinated assault that shattered German morale. The success of Amiens showed the world that tanks were not temporary inventions. They were the future. When the war ended, military theorists everywhere studied the lessons learned from those first tank battles. The ideas born in muddy trenches would evolve into the armored strategies of World War II. From blitzkrieg spearheads to massive tank duels across North Africa and the Eastern Front, all of it traced back to those early machines, rumbling across fields in 1916 and 1917, proving that the battlefield had changed forever. The first tank battles were not elegant. They were clumsy, unpredictable mechanical struggles against mud, steel, and human fear. But in those moments, the world witnessed the dawn of a new form of warfare, one that would dominate the next century. The tank had arrived, and war would never be the same.